great afternoon. Happy and blessed Wednesday, beautiful people. Welcome, welcome. For those who are new here, welcome. This is the Kat Barnett podcast, and I am your host, Kat Barnett. And I help women who struggle with confidence in their faith and fitness develop strategies and systems that lead them to gain clarity, direction, and purpose so that they can be fulfilled as they walk in their calling faithfully. And I'm just excited to be here with you guys a brand new whole week. And I'm back in my natural habitat. As you guys seen last week, I was in Florida, did my first podcast outside with the special guest, Jay Martinez, and it was just a great time. I encourage you guys to see that episode if you have not. And yeah, just grateful to be here with you guys for another week. So I hope you all are doing great. And, last week I talked about, just did a episode on a travel edition with Jade, but I've been talking a lot about mental health, having the healthy habits to be successful. So today I want to talk about a new topic that I haven't yet, but that I believe is very crucial and important to people's success, and that I feel that people have been struggling with lately. And y'all, the topic I want to discuss with y'all today is stress and stress management. And it's so easy, I feel like, for us in this busy world to get stressed out very easily, or just not easily, because we have so many things on our plate. So, you know, but that's not a healthy way to go about things. And it's not good for your overall health. So today I want to discuss, techniques and strategies that can help us deal with stress so that we can succeed in whatever we are called to do. And great afternoon to anyone that is joining. But your girl likes to break down what are the definitions of things. So what is stress management in the first place? So stress management involves using various techniques and coping strategies to manage your overall stress levels, improve how you react to stressful things in your life, and build resilience. So, you know, it may seem like there's nothing that you can do about stress, no way to avoid it and no way to de-stress completely when it hits you. The bills won't stop coming. There will never be more hours in the day, and your work and family responsibilities will always be demanding. But the truth is, you have a lot more control over stress than you may think. So, the simple fact is, realizing that you are in control of your life and in control of balancing out the foundation of stress management. Managing stress, like anything else, is all about taking charge, of your thoughts, emotions, schedule, environment, and the way you deal with problems. And the ultimate goal, I believe, one of the ultimate goals in life, but when it's particularly when we're talking about stress management, is a balanced life, with time for work, relationships, relaxation, and fun. And plus, it's the ability to hold up under pressure and meet challenges head on. So, I like to, before we get into, the different techniques and strategies, I want to really um, stress to you guys that, stress management is not a one size fits all solution. And that's why I think it's very important to experiment and find out what works best for you. And when you're looking to reduce, your overall stress levels, avoid unnecessary stressors in your life, or, try to deal with the stress in the moment, um, while you're dealing with any challenges that come your way. So, um, I also think that there are different causes of stress that can occur in your life. So, I believe stress management starts with identifying the sources of stress in your life. And, this isn't as straightforward as it sounds. While it's easy to identify major stressors such as, changing jobs, moving, or going through a divorce, pinpointing the chronic stress can be more complicated. So, um, I think it's easy to overlook how your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors can contribute to your everyday stress levels. So, maybe it can be, your own procrastination, rather than the actual job demands that is causing you to stress. Who knows? But just pinpointing where your stress is coming from will be the main key. And so I want to go over, practicing the 4 A's that can help improve your stress. So the first one is avoid unnecessary stress. Not all stress can be avoided, and it's not healthy to avoid a situation that needs to be addressed, but you may be surprised by the number of stressors in your life that you can eliminate. I've talked about before on an episode of learning how to say no. That is going to be key because you got to know your limits and stick to them, whether in your personal or professional life. Taking on more than you can handle is a recipe for stress. So just learn how to say no, especially when you know it's going to stress you out. The other one is avoid people who stress you out. This is also a big key because if someone is constantly and consistently causing stress in your life, you need to limit the amount of time that you spend with that person or end the relationship altogether if it's stressing you out that bad, or that badly, I should say. Because, like I said, our peace is non-negotiable this year. Anything that is disrupting our peace, it's gotta go. Period. So you gotta really be mindful of the people you're surrounding yourself with. Take control also of your environment in the evening. um if like the news makes you anxious, turn off the TV. If you like to watch news in the morning or the evening, limit yourself to that stuff, because most of the time, the news is negative. There's only rarely that sometimes the news is positive. So be mindful of that. If traffic makes you tense, take a longer but less traveled route so that it's not going to stress you out. If going to the grocery store or the market is an unpleasant chore for you, do your grocery shopping online. These are just few things that can limit your stress levels. And, I like to also say, um, do things that are going to bring you joy, that will also help with that stress levels. The second one, or the second A, is alter the situation. If you can't avoid a stressful situation, try to alter it. So, what I mean by this is that, this involves, changing the way you communicate and operate in your daily life. So express your feelings instead of bottling them up. If something or someone is bothering you, communicate your concerns in an open and respectful way, though. It's not about, sometimes it's how we say things um that can cause confrontation. So, but if you don't voice your feelings at all, that's how resentment starts, and that will only build and the stress will increase. So be willing to have a conversation, but a respectful one. Be willing to compromise is also a big one. When you ask someone to change their behavior, you have to be willing to do the same. It goes both ways. So if you both are willing to bend at least a little, you'll have a good chance of finding a happy middle ground. Also, be more assertive, right? So don't take a back seat in your own life. Deal with problems head on, and do your best to anticipate and prevent them also. If you got, for example, for any students on here, if you have an exam that you have to study for, and you have a roommate that is just very chatty, um, and that just got home, uh, say up front, to that roommate that you only have, 5 to 10 minutes to talk because you are on a strict schedule to study. And then, I also think it's about finding that balance. All work and no play is a recipe for burnout. I've talked about this before, is you need to try to find a balance between work and family life, social activities, and solitary pursuits that you have, and daily responsibilities and downtime. You have to find that balance in between. And please let me know if you guys are getting value from this at all. The third one, the third A, is adapt to the stressor. If you can't change the stressor that you're currently going through, change yourself. You can adapt to stressful situations and regain your sense of control by changing your expectations, your attitude, and your overall perspective on the situation. Refrain from problems. Try to view stressful situations from a more positive outlook and perspective, rather than, getting mad about the traffic jam. Look at it as an opportunity to pause and regroup. Listen to your favorite radio station or music, or just enjoy some time alone. Look at the big picture. Take perspective of the stressful situation. Ask yourself how important it will be in the long run. Will it matter in a month, a year? Is it really worth getting upset over? If the answer is no, focus your time and energy elsewhere. Once again, I know these are things that are easier said than done, but these are strategies and techniques that you can work on to have yourself be more, or I should say, less stressful, um, with yourself and the ones around you as well. Another one is, adjust your standards. Perfectionism um, is not real. Stop setting yourself up for failure by by demanding perfection. Set reasonable standards for yourself and others, and learn to be okay with just, good enough. If you did your best, if you did um, things to the best of your abilities, that's good enough. And the last one that I want to go over before I go to the fourth and final A is, practice gratitude. This, I will always stress this because it's so big. And it's a big technique slash strategy that I use in my life every day. Is, when you're stressed, or something is getting you down, take a moment to reflect on all the things that you appreciate in your life, including your own positive qualities and gifts. This simple strategy alone can help you keep things in perspective. And it's just a so big thing that can help, and it's changing. That perspective is so key. And the fourth A that was going to help you guys with stress management is accept the things you can't change. I think this is so hard for us as humans because we want to be in control of everything or most things in our life. But some things are out of our control, y'all. So accept the things you can't change, because some sources of stress, like I stated previously, are unavoidable. You can't prevent or change, stressors such as the death of a loved one, or coming down with a serious illness, or, a national recession for that sort. So in cases like this, the best way to cope with stress is to accept the things as they are. Acceptance, like I stated before, it may be difficult. Change is difficult. But in the long run, it's easier than, going off against a situation that you just can't change. Don't try to control the uncontrollables. Many things in life, are beyond our control, and particular like the behavior of other people. We can't control how other people react or act. We can only control how we react and act. So rather than, stressing out over them, focus on the things that you can control, such as the way you choose to react to the problem or the problems. And look for the upside. When facing major challenges, try to look at them as opportunities for personal growth. There's always opportunity to grow, especially in challenges. That's definitely an opportunity to look for that personal growth. Let go um, of, trying to control everything. If you uh, are what was I gonna say? If you are like contributing to a stressful situation by like poor choices that you may have made, um, you know, reflect on them and then learn from your mistakes, and then you got to let go. You got to give yourself grace and move on. And so I think that also goes with learning how to forgive, right? Learning how to forgive yourself and learning how to forgive others, because you have to accept the fact that we live in an imperfect world, and that people are going to make mistakes, because you're also going to make mistakes. So you have to let go of any anger and resentment. And, I feel like for me, um, and just in my personal life, when I felt like screwed over by business partners before in like a previous business. I held on for such a long time to sometimes resentment, where it was just not letting me be myself, where I had to like continuously pray to God to forgive them and pray for my healing. And your girl has came a long way. So, and you just feel so much lighter and freer when you forgive others for the wrongs that they've done to you, and free yourself, from any of that negative energy too that comes with that, by forgiving them and moving on. And so the last one that I want to go over with y'all is, share your feelings. Expressing what you're going through can be very um, beneficial, even if there's nothing that you can do to alter the stressful situation. Talk to a trusted friend or make an appointment with a therapist. And these techniques are not, or these strategies are not things that are going to happen overnight. These are things that, like a skill, you have to work on every day. And real quickly before I end this episode, I just want to go over different techniques that we can go about that can help with our stress levels. And yeah, yes, forgiveness ends up being more for us than them. That's so, so true. And grace, yeah, we got to give people grace. So um but yeah, going over the first technique that you can do is move more during your day. When you're stressed, the last thing you probably feel like doing is getting up and exercising. But physical activity is a huge stress reliever, y'all. And you don't have to be an athlete or spend hours in the gym to experience the benefits. You can easily put on some music and dance around. I know Miss Karen is on, and I just seen on her Instagram this woman was dancing to some gospel. Y'all got to check it out on her story. I was like, get it, Karen, killing it. But that's a big stress reliever. Taking a walk. If you have pets, you can take your pets on a walk. You can walk or cycle to the grocery store. I love to ride my bike, especially with the weather getting nicer. It's just a good stress reliever. Being out in nature, definitely fuels me and keeps me grounded. So I love being out in nature. Um, Use the stairs at home if you have stairs, or walk rather than an elevator. And pair up with an exercise partner and encourage each other as you work out. Just different things that you can do to move your body during the day. The second technique is better manage your time. This was big for me. I learned a strategy to manage my time better, and it was just big for me. Now I break my days up where I have multiple days than just one day. And, because poor time management can cause a lot of stress. And I can speak for myself in the past. Even sometimes I tend to even um not use my time wisely, but I'm more mindful of it. Because when you're stretched too thin and you're running behind, it's hard to stay calm and focused. So, and plus you'll be tempted to avoid or cut back on all the healthy things that you should be doing to keep stress in check, like socializing and getting enough sleep. So I want to say that the good news is that there are things that you can do to achieve a healthier work-life balance. For instance, don't overcommit yourself, right? I think sometimes we tend to do that. Avoid scheduling things back to back, or trying to fit in too much in one day. Sometimes I'm guilty of that too. I want to do this and that. But it's like, hold on, cat, calm down, schedule to do work on something for most of the day. Then maybe you have time to do something else. You know, prioritize tasks. That's something I also had to get better at. Make a list of tasks that you have to do and tackle them in the order of importance, right? Break projects down into small steps. That's also always big. If you have a large project that seems overwhelming, make a step-by-step plan. That's also going to be key. And then delegate responsibility. You don't have to do it all yourself, whether that's at home, school, or on the job. If other people can take care of the task, why not let them? Let go, once again, let go of the desire to control or oversee every little step. So, the other technique is reach out and connect to others, right? That's also so big because, I believe that, like I've stated before, we're not meant to do life alone. So, keep in mind that, people that you talk to, they can't fix your stressors, but they can be good listeners. They can be there to encourage and support you. And that's going to also be key in not being so stressed out. And the fourth technique is make time for fun and relaxation. I like to say, like, I like to work hard, but I like to have fun and play even harder. You know, because it's going to help reduce that stress in your life by carving out me time. Me being an outgoing introvert, me time is non-negotiable. I definitely need me time. So, you know, I encourage you guys to not get so caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, that you forget to take care of your own needs. So, nurturing yourself is a necessity, and it's not a luxury. So, if you're regularly making time for fun and relaxation, you'll be in a better place to handle life's stressors. Trust me on this one, y'all. It's true. Make time for yourself, and set aside that leisure time. Do something you enjoy every day, whether that is an activity that you like that's going to bring you joy, or just, working on something with your hands that's going to bring you joy. And I think also a big one to this is, keep your sense of humor. I love to laugh a lot. And one thing, if you don't get anything out of me, you're going to get a laugh or maybe a joke or two. So, this includes the ability to laugh at yourself, even. The act of laughing helps your body fight stress in a number of ways. And, I've talked about relaxation practices that you can also do, meditation, deep breathing. Is going to help activate that body's relaxation response in a state of restfulness that is the opposite of that fight or flight, um, or mobilization that is for your stress response. So, as you learn and practice these techniques, your stress levels will decrease and your mind and body will become and centered. And then the last technique I want to go over with you guys is maintain balance with a healthy lifestyle. I talked to you guys about me now getting a nutritionist, and I just want to be the best, healthiest self that I can be this year. And I'm off to a good start. I'm not where I want to be, but I'm working towards where I want to go towards. So it's just taking those daily steps every day towards it. Regular exercise is one. Having a healthy, I don't like to say diet, but if you want to say diet, eating or having a healthy diet. Well nourished bodies are better prepared to cope with stress. So be mindful of what you eat. Start your day right with breakfast. I know not everybody likes to eat breakfast, including myself. Sometimes I struggle with that, but I love a good brunch. So try a good brunch if you don't eat breakfast, so that you can keep your energy up and your mind clear with balanced nutrition meals throughout the day. A big one that I know people like is that caffeine, but you got to reduce that caffeine and sugar, y'all, because the temporary highs that caffeine and sugar often provide end with a crash in your mood and energy. So you want to try to reduce the amount of coffee, soft drinks, chocolate, and sugar snacks in your diet or your healthy lifestyle, so that you feel more relaxed and it'll help you sleep better. One thing that I had to also limit myself to, y'all, is the sugar, the brownies and the cookies that your girl loves, the ice cream. So I'm doing a better job of limiting myself to that. I'm not saying you can't have it every once in a while, but it's not an everyday thing. Avoid alcohol if you're a drinker, cigarettes or drugs. Self-medicating with alcohol or drugs may provide an easy escape from stress, but the relief is only temporary. So don't avoid or mask the issue at hand. Deal with the problem or the problems that you're having head on with a clear mind. And a big one, y'all, that I will continue stressing that your girl is now getting better at is getting enough sleep. Adequate sleep fuels your mind and as well as your body, because feeling tired will increase your stress because it may cause you to think irrationally. I always say now in my life, I need to have at least 7 hours or more, but at least get 6 or more hours, y'all. So those are all the techniques and strategies that are going to help with your stress levels. So I hope you got value from that. I know this was kind of a longer episode, but stress management is such an important part in our life, and it's a key thing to try to limit ourselves to, because there's so much that we want to get done sometimes, but let's try to use these strategies and techniques that I've went over to limit our stress levels. And if you have any questions about any of those, don't be afraid to DM me or ever email me. And with that being said, this is going to conclude today's podcast, and I hope you guys got value. And as always, have a beautiful, great Wednesday, but an even greater week. And I'll see you guys here next Wednesday. Peace, love, and blessings. God bless you guys.